City dropping more points from winning positions, the only thing more annoying than the click to load in 4K trend. Joe Ricci, Adam Booker joining us. Adam, what do you make of that?
Yeah, I was straight on Twitter at full time and basically said, this isn't a surprise. I thought, I think obviously people had somewhat of a positive vibe coming into the game after three wins on the bounce, one of which you put eight past Salford, and you come into this game with a fitter squad than we've had, just solely based off the fact that we have seen some of the first team players not play football for what 12, 13 days, something like that. But when you really look back on it sort of analytically, the win at Leicester, the win at home against Everton, or the win at home against West Ham, City were crap in both of those games. And a couple of Leicester opportunities that they should take, City don't win that game. West Ham somehow City win that game and put four past them and only concede one. They should have conceded at least three. And I think those results were the anomalies. And this was the status quo. That City have top end talent like Holland and Foden and De Bruyne and Savinho who will make things happen at times. But the defensive frailties, the midfield frailties, the lack of legs, the defenders not being fit enough to move, all of those things are just going to continue to persist until they don't, essentially. And right now, they still exist, and City's frailties are obvious, and results like this are going to happen one out of every three games, probably.
Yeah, a nice summary there, I feel like, Joe. And we were just saying before we pressed record, if this was some sort of, if you had City's fortunes in your hand and we were on a game show, and I don't know, some swanky game show host rang you up and said, "Hey, I can offer you Brentford 2, Manchester City 2." I think up until that first whistle in the game, it was a 7:30 kickoff here in the UK. I'd say rough ballpark number, 85% of City fans would have probably taken it because I thought we were going to get torn to shreds. I don't know about you. I think it's just the frustrations from this one come how the two goals for Brentford come about, with City having done the hard part, not necessarily looking that good, but also looking great in other parts at going 2-0 up.
Yeah, I think you said it, perfectly. I mean, including tonight's win, Brentford are second in the table for home form behind
Mm.
Liverpool. So you contrast that with their away form, they're 18th, but at home they have been and continue to be a great side. I think this is a game that really always kind of favored them against City, being at home, sitting 10 behind the ball, waiting for their chances, knowing that if they come, there will be opportunities. And, to be honest, I was surprised at how much of a basketball match it really was. It seemed
It
like
was fun though. It was a
it,
really, really fun game to watch.
it was fun. I think in another season, City in their heyday, for lack of a better term, probably put four or five, maybe six past Brentford because there were the opportunities. Kevin De Bruyne running through midfield, Holland making runs, Savinho, etc. So again, I think you put it well. Like, it was an exciting game. I think there was a lot of positives you can take out of it for City. I'd say there's probably more positives than negatives. And again, if we can take a step back and say this isn't, City had a couple good games. They're not going to win the league. Like, let's keep taking these steps back. Let's keep being realistic and saying they put up a really good fight against a side that's brilliant at home, and it obviously didn't go their way. But like you said before the match, I'd have happily taken 2-2.
Yeah, I just want to say, Joe's not the first person I've heard or see say that they were surprised at how open the game was. I'm not sure how anyone could be surprised at how much of a basketball game it was. I thought
Maybe more
the
surprised in how much City contributed to that, because
yeah,
I think we'd probably expect Brentford to have the run of the midfield.
yeah,
Right.
maybe. But City's frailties are they have no legs, they give the ball away too easily, and they can't defend in transition. And Brentford are a team that will sort of let you come at them a bit, and City have players that if they're given any sort of space, they'll utilize it. So I thought the makings were there for exactly what we saw play out. It's just great that City took a couple of their chances and this game didn't finish 2 or 3 nil to Brentford. That may be the pessimistic view,
Mm.
but like you said, Amos, coming into it, if City loses game 2-0 and it's another Juventus or another Brighton or whatever, it's not a surprise.
Yeah, I think if we are looking for positive, City, what is that now? 4 against West Ham, 8 against Salford, 2 against Brentford. You could maybe spin it that way. One of the things I found super interesting actually in the last, I'd say, 3 months since this slump, so to speak, started for City, is the fact that there isn't an objective negative point. When City have been really good, you could look at City's flaws and you could point and you could say, oh, that's obvious, blah, blah, blah. It seems like everyone's blaming everyone, and not in a sort of finger pointing way. It's just the way people read the game. And we've had this submission on Instagram actually from Neil McKenna, who has said, it's a bit of a lengthy message, so we'll bounce off it if you guys just want to sort of memory bank it, and because there is plenty of points. Neil says, couldn't have asked more from most of the players. Pep needs to take some of the blame for the result, though. Gundo and McAtee for Kovacic and 2-goal Foden have to be among the most bewildering substitutions I've seen him make. Haaland was reduced to a hold it up / layoff merchant. Nunes was anonymous. I don't know what Pep sees in him. On the bright side, though, to the extent there is one, Savinho is going from strength to strength. Another 2 points tomahawk dunked into the bin. Whew, and breathe. Joe, there is, like I said, plenty to take away from that. And I think just a quick scroll on social media. In fact, my first scroll on social media after full time was somebody criticising Kovacic and somebody suggesting that him going off the pitch was a mistake. This kind of feels where City are, and Neil's summarised it from one point of view, I feel, quite well.
Yeah, it's definitely where City are at as far as their midfield goes. I think there are aspects of Mateo Kovacic's game in particular that are beneficial to City. There are certainly aspects of his game that I think summarize everything about what's wrong with the side right now, and that I don't believe out of possession he is who you'd want in the 6. But again, when you go down the list of players in the squad, next in line's probably Ilkay Gundogan. I'm certainly not pushing him to the top to be an out of possession number 6 at 2025. Nico O'Reilly, again, I've been advocating for him, especially of late, but again, he's not the answer by himself. So when you look at the side, it's like, it has to be Kovacic, and you have to build around him players that are going to help. And unfortunately, there's not many of those right now. So I think my overarching take is you kind of have to take the good with the bad and say, this is a matter of squad assembly and where the squad's at. So I'm frustrated, but not really at the players, because again, Mateo Kovacic isn't a 23-year-old midfielder that you're going to grow with and see more of his game develop. He is who he is, and I don't see him really changing at this point in his career. So again, to get frustrated is fair. I think to expect something else is probably a little naive.
I think the criticism of the substitution for Ilkay Gundogan coming on for Kovacic is fair. I don't really have a huge issue with Gundogan coming into the game. I have an issue with Gundogan coming in to be the like-for-like replacement for Mateo Kovacic. If you're bringing in Ilkay Gundogan to play alongside him and you have an extra body in midfield when you've got a 2-goal lead and a team that can hit you quickly, fine. Maybe the substitution is Rico Lewis to come into midfield, because he's somebody that can just sit there and plug things up and has a bit more legs and energy about him. Yeah, but for me, it's the issue is Ilkay Gundogan coming in and playing by himself, because there's a certain Yorkshireman who's being driven out of town at the moment for his liabilities when City are trying to defend Leeds. And somehow he's the only one getting that treatment, and he's not the only player that I think has been liable for some of these mistakes.
You know what's funny? I when you started that, until you said this season, I didn't know if you were on about Calvin Phillips or Kyle
That's
Walker.
what I was thinking.
No. I'm on about Kyle Walker. I think it's. I said this on probably yesterday's episode or some other previous episode that Kyle Walker is under the microscope because he's a defender. So when he makes a mistake, it's obvious that it leads to a goal immediately. If Ederson makes a mistake, it's obvious. If it happens in a scrum in midfield, it's not quite as obvious to the average observer. But Gundogan playing in there by himself, he can't do it. He cannot do it. And so
Nor
immediately
either, which we've covered
exactly.
at length.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there's a million and one substitutions you make before that one. Rico Lewis. I don't know about Nico O'Reilly. I think Nico O'Reilly is a really good player. I just realistically, Pep's never going to make that change. He's never going to bring off a Mateo Kovacic for a teenager when you've got a lead away from home at a team that I think has the second best home record
Do
in
you
the
want
Premier
him
League.
to? Difficult question, but would you are you
Yeah,
of the camp of you want to see Pep preserve these young talents? Because look, I think we can say we're probably, touch wood anyway, out of the worst of it. 6 defeats on the trot, whatever it was. City are playing more coherently now. They've got bodies back. They're looking better. Would you prefer to see these young talents come in a little bit more? Or sorry, would you prefer them to be preserved, or would you sort of want them to come in and earn their stripes almost?
I think in a situation like that, I'd like to see the young players more, and it's not from a sense of thinking that I think that they are the saviors and that you bring in a bunch of wide-eyed 19-year-olds and their energy and their enthusiasm is going to turn the season around. It's more from a fact of we've seen, it's the Kyle Walker argument. We've seen it's going to fall flat on its face every single time, so you might as well do something different. JSP might not be any better, but it's something different. And I wasn't advocating against that earlier in the season, but that was 6 losses ago or whatever.
The goalposts have moved by now.
Yeah,
I feel like that's clear.
If we see every single time that Gundogan is in midfield by himself, he just gets overrun, do something different. Nico O'Reilly might get overrun, but it's something different. It's what's most frustrating about it is not the result; it's the repeated result that we have to keep watching over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most frustrating thing.
It does
Exactly.
feel like gaslighting at this point.
If Nico O'Reilly comes in and you have the exact same result, I'll take it on the chin. But it's the fact that I already know what's coming. That's what's most annoying.
I think the interesting thing for me on the topic of Nico O'Reilly, and I put out on social media Monday, I think, a lineup I'd like to see, and I had O'Reilly in it. And for me, I think as we talk about throwing these younger players in, I'd almost rather see them from the start than to substitute a Kovacic on the 76th minute, because at that point, Gundogan's thrown in against a Brentford side that's picking up momentum, picking up confidence. Obviously he has tired legs around him in that City midfield. So to be honest, you're almost setting whoever up to fail. It really does, it doesn't matter who you're throwing in there because of what's around them. Again, if you had a healthy Rodri, maybe that's a different case, but obviously that's not going to happen. So for me, I'd almost rather see an O'Reilly start the game instead of Bernardo Silva with Kovacic. And I think you have a better trickle-down effect of, he can carry more ground and the players around him are a little less exhausted. So again, it's a back and forth. If there's probably no right answer, I think for me, and I'm sure we'll get to Akanji, but a JSP.
I was going to do it. I was going to do it now, in fact, because maybe not Akanji as such, but the defense in general, because that it feels like the defense is the problem when you watch the 90 minutes. But in my opinion, all of the defensive issues stem from the midfield, and you speak of that trickle down effect. It feels like City are so susceptible to these goals that go in because their midfield is just at times non-existent. And Neil on the DM said Mateus Nunes was anonymous. Now, I mean, it wasn't his greatest game, was it? Well, yeah, yeah, fair play. It wasn't his greatest game, but again, he's a predominantly at a push. You could maybe say an 8. Predominantly throughout his entire career, he has been a more advanced midfielder who's usually operating in the final third, let alone just the middle third itself. He's played right back against Manchester United. For me, felt like he was okay in that game. Obviously, had a howling error at the end, which cost City the match. But would you have preferred Nunes at right back or Kyle Walker? Because it kind of feels like that's where City are at the moment. There's a short straw, and then there's just no straw. It's use your teeth.
I also think it's harsh to say he was anonymous. I mean, he's making a case for the most traveled player in the squad, playing at left wing one game and right back the next. He's covering complete opposite ends of the pitch, and I think you're asking a lot of a player who, coming into the season, there was questions of would he even stick around? Would he go to Saudi? Would he get a move elsewhere? So, and on another day too, if Holland had any idea of how to head the ball in the back of the net, Nunez has an assist. So,
He has a
again,
goal if he has any idea how to shoot,
well,
which was baffling.
but again, to your point, the alternative is Kyle Walker or maybe Rico Lewis, and I'm not expecting anything better from them either. So it's like we're at a point where, again, we don't have the right to be spoiled and expecting much better, unfortunately. I think, did he look like a midfielder playing right back at times? 100%. But what's the alternative and what are you expecting out of them? Because I don't think it's going to be much better. I'm sure people will make a case for Rico. I think that's fair. But, I don't think Nunez did anything to hurt what he offers this side, in my opinion.
I would have preferred Kyle Walker because Kevin De Bruyne almost kicked the ball out of the stadium, and Kyle Walker most certainly would have kicked the ball out of the stadium in that instance, and that would have been great fun.
That stadium is used for rugby matches, by the way, so maybe he was trying to...
How does the ball stay in? Surely the ball gets kicked out in rugby.
It is literally a Lego stadium. It is tiny.
It's mad. On Nunez, I thought he was fine. Obviously, there was that one moment where he could have done better on that 2-on-1 counterattack with Holland. Do something. Either square it or shoot it. Don't cut it back inside where there's defenders. The worst thing you could possibly do in that situation. This is it now. City have two options for right back if we're considering Nunez as one of them, who neither of them really have a position in the squad, and they're options at right back because they don't have a position in the squad. That's basically it. I mean, Rico Lewis has obviously played there most of his youth days, but I think he's stuck in between about 4 different positions at the moment, Rico. But yeah, Nunez is a player that does a ton. He tries really hard. He runs a ton. And it doesn't always result in the prettiest performance, but runs a lot and does a lot and tries really hard is, that might be the base level at this point.
Do you guys want to hear something funny? I'm on and we won't name them because maybe one day this football statistics application might want to come and sponsor us, and we will happily take their money. But one of the football statistics websites who have done match ratings have put Nathan Ake, Joe, 6.9, Manuel Akanji 7.0.
And someone screenshotting that on X and saying like Nathan Ake's trash, and it's funny. I may or may not have that page up from a certain statistics website, so I may or may not know who you're talking about. Akanji is a player that like I genuinely feel bad for right now because coming into the season, I'd probably say he's City's best all-around center back in terms of what he can offer and what he's done in his few seasons at City. He has just been, and Ake alike, actually just asked to do more than they should be.
Well, they're not fit, are they?
Exactly.
Neither of them are fit.
And to put, for both of them to put in 90 minutes, and honestly, I think we should probably throw Guardiola in that too. He's played, I think, the most minutes in the squad this season for outfield players. So
don't worry, Joe. There's an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old from Uzbekistan on the way to save the day.
Yeah. There's our next right back replacement.
I mean, Twitter has decided the season is saved because we're signing 2 10-year-olds and a winger.
He shoulder bumps people really hard at him, so we'll be just fine.
Oh, great.
I think I would like to take 30 seconds to just talk about Nathan Ake though, because let's throw that score out the window and just talk about people who actually
I didn't
watched
listen.
the match.
What was the score? What's the rating?
6.9 for Nathan Ake. 7 for Akanji.
Oof.
I mean, Akanji, I'm not even going to throw numbers on them because I don't want to be harsh. I think Ake was brilliant. I mean, again, that goal line clearance aside, yeah. I think he was who he always is. He's giving literally every single thing that he has, and to me, he never really puts a foot wrong, even when he's not 100% fit, which has probably been this whole season. I just absolutely adore the guy. Akanji, again, adore him too, but I think just as much he needs a physical break, he needs a mental break. He just looks like a shell of himself, and I think that's, again, on recruitment and not on him.
Is that influencing his fashion choices?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
God.
That was tough.
There's a great show. Everyone should know this show. The great show Scrubs. There is a prank that they constantly, JD and Turk, try to pull where it's called World's Most Giant Doctor, and they get a massive lab coat and they fit each other into it, and they get a huge stethoscope, a huge clipboard, a huge pen. That it looked like Manuel Akanji was trying to play World's Most Giant Doctor in that massive trench coat that was way too big for him.
Just
Yes, if you haven't seen that, go look it up. It's bad. The
I'm
Akanji
not
photo.
I'm not one of the absolute weirdos online who thinks that footballers shouldn't like hang out with their family during losing streaks, or like, oh my God, he was spotted at the movie theater, but we lost last week. How could he be going out to the movies? However, you don't get to dress like that if you've won 3 games in 14 or whatever it is.
No. The worst bit about it, I've pulled it back up now. I mean, the worst bit about it is about 75 worst bits about it. The fact that he's in, I wanna say there's some undergarment leg wear going on, but at the moment you could just see a big trench coat, his bare knees, and some white socks. The bag is horrific, but I think the worst bit about it is the fact he has no hands.
It's the bag looks like
Or legs anymore, Amos. So he's just hopping on the trend.
And like, what are the grandpa socks that are like shrugged down? It's if you go neck up, he looks really cool.
Rich people
I'll
are
give him
playing
that.
a joke on us. They are.
Yeah,
They are.
Yeah.
They're constantly seeing what they could get away with.
he walked into his like local Salvation Army, got as many things put together, and called it an outfit.
Yep.
Which, in a way, sort of represents City's defending. Haphazard at best. That was the first part of the show. If you want more, make sure to check the City Ramble wherever you get your podcasts from.